Hello, hello. This is going to be a quick guide for new players joining with the European server launch. So, first thing first, on the left here you have your list of characters. You can have 3 characters per server. At first, let me just go off by explaining a little bit what is Albion. So Albion's a sandbox MMORPG where you are what you wear. And it doesn't use the traditional XP system, it uses a fame system. So the more you use a weapon and kill mobs, you will gain a certain amount of fame towards those weapons that you have on you. So if you're using a bow with leather armor, you're going to get fame towards your bow and those leather armor pieces. And it's different pieces like your helmet, your chest plate, your shoes are all different pieces. But more about that later in the video. And right below that, we have a button here for gold and another one for premium. This will just open up the Albion website where you can buy these things directly from their website. I'll go over gold and premium and all that later in the video. Next up, we have this nifty little button up here in the top right, which this will allow you to switch between your servers. Europe currently isn't available yet, so we have to wait. And there's also a closed beta that's going to be happening soon. I'll go over how to get access to this later as well, but another thing is after the closed beta, there's going to be an open one, so anybody, like all free-to-play players, will be able to try out Albion on the Europe server. And you can tell I'm definitely excited for this, because 15 ping is definitely a lot better than 120 I'm getting on NA servers. And here's my little character I made on the East server. Back when it launched, I played a couple, I played a couple hours, and I was like, yeah, I saw what I wanted to see, but the ping was so bad I couldn't enjoy it. All right, next up we have the options, and our usual suspects. You know, language, the day format, general settings, all this. You can copy my settings, or you can, you know, kind of like customize it your way. I'll say one of the little settings that's not there by default is in the vanity for your opponents. Normally you would have this set to only in safe zones. That way when you're starting the game, you'll notice that certain armor sets have a specific look to them. So if you can identify armor without having to inspect opponent, that could be quite useful in like a very, you know, like here you're getting ganked situation where you don't have time to inspect. But I have it on to set the skin because most of the time people who have like, you know, good looking skins also are like, you know, decent players at the game. So I use that to identify like, you know, potentially good players, but you know, you do it your way. Next up we have the overcharge setting. So this is basically what if weapons are going to be affected by overcharge. You basically want to leave it as is unless you have like a very specific thing like you want to do, like you don't want this item to have a chance of breaking. So I'll explain more overcharge later, but for now we're just going to leave it as is. And then the streamer mode, this is usually just for like streamers or content creators that want to make videos for Albion. You want to, you know, hide some information you don't want people to know, like your email address. Obviously here in the graphics it's really personal. You can change this on how you want to or copy mine. As for the rest, the account button will just open up your account on the Albion website. Here in the redeem tab, you can just drop your gold codes or your premium codes and claim them here. Sometimes streamers will have these available, but it depends on like the SBI devs if they're giving them out or not. Alright, after a quick peek at all that, I think it's time we get to character creation. Sadly, the character creator isn't the greatest in the world. You have some presets you can choose from here, but you can customize it later. And there's only male and female human characters you can play. So yeah, there's just a few hairstyles you can choose from, different colors for the hair, and then different body types, as well as like the color of the clothes. So once you're done customizing your character, we're gonna choose a name for your character. And there you go, you finally have a character that you can enter the world with. Now here you have an option right below the enter to skip the tutorial or play it. I chose here to skip it because this is more like what this tutorial is about. If you would rather like have the game tell you how to play, and you know sometimes it could be a little bit confusing, you can go ahead and do that, or you can listen to the rest of this video and learn maybe a little bit more. So first thing Albion loves to do is just slam the fact that you don't have premium in your face. Like even if you have like maybe 2 or 3 days left, it's just gonna keep slamming you with these notifications. Hey man, get premium. So what you saw there before was the activity board, and here we have like the monthly challenge. In order to get progress for these rewards, you just have to like basically do anything: gathering, killing mobs, PvP. I believe all this will give you progress towards unlocking your daily rewards. So doing your daily will give you a nice little boost into these weekly rewards down here, which is all these chests now. Usually the first one's unlocked and the rest of them are locked at the beginning of the month, and you have to wait like 1 week for each chest to unlock, but you can already get the progress for it before they unlock. You do have to manually claim these rewards, but you don't worry if you've unlocked them but you didn't claim them. There's always this button here that allows you to go back and claim those that you didn't claim from the previous month. Yeah, then next up we have the faction warfare. So you can do this solo, you can do this with a group, you can do this with a guild, you can do this with like a Zerg if you wanted to. It's really fun, definitely worth trying at least once, or like every time the events pop up for faction warfare, it's definitely worth going in there and doing. Next one is the Conqueror's Challenge, and in order to get mites, you can just press this little icon here to see all the stuff you can do for it. It's mostly PvP oriented stuff though. But might does give you some pretty juicy rewards if you get enough of it. And grab the monthly chest. And next thing is we have a little event tab here. So currently there's the Easter event, so you can, check all the details down here. Alright, let's close all that and let's go over to what we see here on our HUD. So our character portrait up here is on the top left with our health, our mana. This is what you use to turn yourself into an outlaw, which will enable PvP in the yellow and red zones. And we also call this flagging. Alright, so after channeling for a couple seconds, the icon will change to a sword, which will show that you are currently an outlaw. And this will enable PvP against blue and red players out in the open world. So by default, everybody's blue. If you flag up, you will become red. And there's also certain areas that if you enter those areas, you will become temporarily flagged, which means people can attack you if you're temporarily flagged, and you can attack others that are also temporarily flagged. I'll go into more depth about this later. So right here we're looking at the map and we can see all these blue zones are basically like non-PvP zones. You can't flag up and fight anybody in the blue zones, but you can in the yellow zones and the red zones. Alright, the difference between the yellow and red zone is that when someone's flagged up and fighting you in the yellow zone, you won't die. You'll just drop your armor and your weapons and everything you have on you will lose a certain amount of durability, and that durability would be transferred into silver, which will just drop on the ground, and whoever knock you down will probably pick it up. It's not usually not a lot, but in the red zones, when you die, you lose everything you have on you, except for your gold and silver, of course. Just like the equipment and weapons and potions and whatever you have in your bag are going to drop, but also have a chance of breaking, which is how Albion balances the amount of items that are in the game. So when you kill a player, there's a chance that the items will break, and it will turn into trash, the same tier as the item that was broken. So if you look down on the minimap, you'll notice there's two different islands. So the one down here at the bottom is called the Royal Continent, and up here we have the Black Zone. And here it's full PvP everywhere. You don't have to flag up. There's no temporary flagging here. It's just everybody. If you see somebody, you can attack them. There's also a couple cities that are friendly where you can attack people. And you might be wondering, how exactly do you get to the Black Zone? Well, basically, these little lights that you see here in the Royal Continent, there was those same lights out there in the Black Zone. And basically, each major city, except for one at Caerleon, has a portal towards the Black Zone. Something to note though is that when you use a portal to the Black Zone, you become locked to that portal. So let's say for example you're here in Bridgewatch and you take the portal up into the Black Zone, you will be locked to that portal. Unless you travel from the Black Zone all the way to a different portal and go through it, then you will be locked to that new portal. But let's say if you go from Bridgewatch to let's say Marlock, which is the blue city, or like the blue beam or whatever. If you try to go to the portal in Marlock, you won't be able to because you're currently locked to the one in Bridgewatch. And the only way to change it is either wait, I believe, a week, or like I said before, run from in the Black Zone, run from one portal to the next. Alright, now that most of that's out of the way, let's go back here. Let's go back up here to the scroll icon and see what else there is. And here we have the arena. This is basically instance content. So you basically queue up. You have to have a certain amount of item power before you queue up, but I think arena is 700 by default, and the crystal arena is a little bit higher than that. I don't know it off the top of my head. I'm sure the info is in there somewhere. But yeah, you can do instance content. You can or do a custom match if you wanted to. and it's just basically 5v5s with like capturing objectives to get points, and whoever runs out of points loses. Also, there's like daily rewards you can get for doing arena, which they're not the most valuable thing ever, but it's always a little something free, and you also don't lose any of your gear for doing arena. Alright, moving on over back to the scroll icon. Let's see what else we got here. So here you have like basically all the activities here, or you can just click the button on the bottom to see all the activities. And here's one of the features that I think is like the least used in the entirety of Albion, is the group finder. It's very rare, but sometimes you'll find people doing like small groups for doing dungeons together, but most of the time like I don't really see anybody using this. So I mean, it might be popular at the EU launch because a lot of players aren't going to have their group already. They're not going to be in guilds, and maybe they want to do some like group content. So I mean, maybe you'll see a lot more use at the beginning, but right now on the NA server, it is completely dead. And here we have the mailbox. Here you'll see like game notifications. You'll get the like every time you sell something on the marketplace, you'll get a notification with the amount of silver you made. And you can also like send messages to players and yada yada, usual mailbox stuff. Now, next tab up here is your inventory. You can also just press I as a shortcut to open this. You can also change that in the settings. All you have to do is
here you have
your helmet, your chest plate,
icon.
You can change the color. Your main weapon will be on the left here, and then your offhand will be on the right if you can. Sometimes two-handed weapons won't let you have an offhand. Then you have your bag, your cape, your potions, your food, and your mounts. And if you press this beautiful loadout button on here, you get to something that's extremely useful for getting your loadouts and making item sets and all that. You can even make a loadout based on your equipment that you're currently wearing. Then press create and voila, now we have another tab. And here's where you can look through the entire list of all the items in the game and just add it to your character as a preset. And then once you go to the market, you can find this preset and just equip, and it'll buy all the items that you need to fill out the preset. And also something very important, so all these little icons down here on the bottom are basically like it tries to define like an equivalent item to what you're putting here in your preset. And this can also be like very dangerous because it is the exact item, the exact tier, the exact enchantment or whatever, and it'll find that exact thing and put it there. And sometimes people will abuse this system and put that item for way more expensive, but then like let's say a higher quality item of the same type is cheaper. So what you want to do is you want to put all these to like the blue mark that's pointed upwards, and what this will do, it'll find either the exact same that you currently listed, or it'll find something higher but cheaper. I forgot to do so in my little recording here because I pre-recorded all of this, but yeah, you get the idea. And I mean, it's not the end of the world, but it's just one way that when the system was created, people were like basically cheesing you into buying like very expensive stuff. Something you'll notice though as you're making your little loadout is that some items will be read out, which means that though you don't have enough mastery in that weapon in order to use it. So in order to check your masteries, you can scroll down as you're inspecting the weapon where you see the stats and the skills, and at the very bottom you'll see the resources required to make it, but you also see like what you need in order to either craft the weapon or equip it. So if you just click on this, it'll open up your destiny board, and here is where a lot of things get interesting. So like I said at the beginning, when you kill mobs in this game, it'll give you fame, and as you gain fame, it'll unlock higher tiers of the weapon that you're currently using. So right now we only have access to the sword, the bow, and I believe the fire staff at tier 2. As you use these tier 2 weapons, you'll gain fame, and once you reach a certain amount of fame, you'll unlock tier 3 weapons. For example here, if I unlock this tree, I would get access to the bow, the quarterstaff, the one-handed dagger, the nature staff, spear, the offhand torch, and the shapeshifter weapons. And the same thing goes for your armor as well. Like as you use the leather armor, you'll unlock the tier 3 leather armors. Same for the other two types, the plates and cloth. Alright, so before I talk about these little icons on the top right of the screen, I need to tell you about once you've reached tier 4 items, you'll start to gain spec towards a very specific weapon. That's the end of the branch. At the very end of the branch, you have like a very specific weapon. Like let's say you're going into the sword tree, there'll be 7 different swords you could choose from that tree. So let's say you use the broadsword, which is the very first one. If you're using the broadsword, you'll gain mastery in that specific weapon, but also in the general like sword tree. Here I'm calling it mastery, but most people will call it spec, short for specialized. And your spec, like for example in the broadsword, you can get it up to 100, and once you've reached 100 spec, you have to start investing fame credits and silver in order to upgrade it even higher, and then the max you can go up to is 120 spec. And the reason why this is important is because as you gain spec, you'll also gain item power towards your weapons. And when you gain item power, it increases the stats that it gives you. So, someone who has no spec has basically the default item power and has, default stats. But if you increase your spec to 100, or at least 100, you'll have increased stats, like increased item power and increased stats. And it's basically as if you were wearing a higher tier version of that item you have. So let's say, for example, you want to switch to the Claymore, which is also in the weapon tree. You won't have as much item power as if you were using the broadsword. But a small portion of that spec that you have into the broadsword is applied to your Claymore. Since it's in the same weapon tree, a small part of that item power increase from your broadsword spec is given to your Claymore. Which is very confusing to explain here, especially since I'm not showing off the actual specs here. Because, like I said, I pre-recorded this, and it was hard to predict what you're going to say. So as you're leveling up your weapon, you will gain fame, and as you're reaching certain levels of fame with specific weapons, you'll gain levels. But once you've reached 100, you will no longer gain levels, but you'll still gain fame, and you'll gain 20% of that fame as fame credits. Unless you activate auto respect, which basically times it by 4, but every time you gain fame, you have to pay a portion of that in silver. So if you just happen to have a shit ton of money laying around, then maybe it's an option for you if you still want to get your fame up to 120. But yeah, it's not really worth it for normal players. Next up, we have the learning points. Now, this thing's a little bit more interesting, and I couldn't show it here because I didn't have any fame towards any of the weapons, but with learning points, what you can do is basically, once you reach 20% of the fame you need to level up a weapon, you can skip to the end and level that weapon up instantly with learning points. And you gain learning points every single day. If you don't have premium, you have to do the daily activity in order to get I think it's 30 learning points a day. But if you have premium, you don't have to do your dailies. You just get 30 learning points every day. Next up here, we have a little search thingy. It's just helpful for trying to find a weapon. If you know the name of it, you just type it in. It'll drag your screen right over to whatever weapon you typed in. So here we have the crafting side of everything. So on the left side was all your actual using weapons. Now here's the crafting. And the idea is basically the same as your weapons. You start from tier 2, you go to tier 3, and it branches out and unlocks a bunch more specific weapons you can go into, and yada yada. And down here we have the gathering tools: fishing, gathering, mining, skinning, wood cutting, and then stone gathering. And right next to that we have the refining. So as you're gathering resources, you can refine those materials into stuff that you actually need in order to craft the weapons. And to the left of that, you have farming. So farming you can't do until you've unlocked your islands, which you need premium, and you need a lot of silver in order to buy the island. But once you have all that, you can either raise animals or grow crops or grow herbs. And right next to that, we have cooking, which includes potions, like potion making as well. So you can either make food or you can go towards making potions. Then this little purple thing up here, which was recently added, is the tracking tree. So this is, it's a whole thing you can do out in the open world. I think I might go over this in another video. Now there's 2 more branches here that are interesting to look at. So first one's here to the left is your Reaver. So this Reaver, if you read the stats of it, is very interesting because as you level up Reaver, which is basically just gaining general PvE fame, you'll do more damage and you'll take less damage from higher tier mobs. So definitely one of the things you want to get, up to tier 8 as soon as possible so that mobs are no problem for you. But then we have another one here where it's the adventurer line, and this is basically all fame that you get from like gathering everything will give you fame towards this. And as you level up your adventurer, it will give you access to higher tier bags, mounts, and like a different capes. I think we covered most of the things here in the Destiny board. Let's move on to the next thing. So the next thing we have up here is the guilds, which is, I mean, kind of obvious what it is. Just some key things to note. If you're trying to make your own guild, it does cost 1,000,000 silver in order to create it. And you can also have up to 300 members in your guild. But you can have, technically you could have more if you're in an alliance with other guilds. Next up is the rankings. I don't think this is too interesting to look at other than like checking out what the top players are doing, or the people who are getting like the most amount of fame. You can check out their builds, see what they're using, and you kind of guess what they're doing, like if they're doing PvP content or PvE. It's also a good way of like checking out some like of the best builds at the moment, or like what the best PvP players are using. Next up here we have a little social tab. So basically whenever you add friends to your friends list, they'll show up here. It'll show like last time they were on, and you can also like quick invite them to a group and stuff like that. And now for the shiny buttons that are up here. So we have the gold icon. So here it shows you like the fluctuation of the gold market. So you can buy gold with silver, and you can also sell your gold for silver. And just a reminder, you can buy gold for real money. So I mean, that's one way of transferring your gold into silver, but to be fair, I don't really think it's worth it. It'd be pretty expensive to get a lot of silver, and a lot of people think this is like a pay-to-win mechanic, but you got to realize that someone who, let's say someone buys like a shit ton of silver, and it puts all of it into like an 8.4 set. Already, he would need the fame. He would need a character that could even put that gear on, and he would also need the spec to make it worth having that gear on. And if you went to a PvP zone and you try to fight anybody else, he'd probably lose. So yeah, it's not really pay to win if all the stuff that you're buying can be like, lost, I guess, in a way. And to be fair, like someone who plays the game and is really good at it can have the exact same stuff. So it doesn't give them, like, people who swipe credit cards don't really get an advantage in that way. Next up here we have a little premium icon. So basically the same idea, but this one shows a tab where it shows you the current price of premium for silver and for gold. One thing to note though, as I believe buying premium directly instead of buying gold and then buying premium, I believe just buying it directly is cheaper, but don't quote me on that. And then of course here on the left side you can see there's a shit ton of like very cool bonuses for having premium. And I think that's one of the great things about Albion is the fact that you can play the game free to play and still get premium and all these bonuses for free. You don't have to spend a dime in the game. So next up we have this little icon here with a bunch of notifications. This is basically just a link to all their bundles, like all the coin bundles and vanity bundles. None of these actually give you a bonus. It's just, you're buying gold, and with the gold comes like skins, like mount skins, character skins, which I didn't show off on my character here, which I could have, but I forgot about it. Also, a quick tip, if you're buying these vanity skins, is that they're applied to your account directly. You can't like buy them and sell them on the marketplace. Alright, so there's a couple more icons over here on the top right. So here we have obviously their settings, and then you have below that you have the Destiny board. And this little lock icon here shows you your progress toward your daily rewards. And there's a little quest thingy here. So sometimes when you're doing objectives, it'll tell you like it'll give you a little message on what you need to do with it, or like when you're doing corrupted dungeons, for example, it'll tell you like your goal or your objective. And like I said before, above that we have a little Destiny board icon here, which it's kind of useful because let's say there's no missions in this game, like technically. There's no like quest line, there's no storyline. It's all just you do whatever you want to do. But I think the Destiny board is very useful in that way because it shows you what kind of weapons you've been specking up and like how much further you need in order to level them up, which gives you like a goal and an incentive to know to like, yeah, you want to level up these things up to 100. So you probably notice all these icons down here. That's basically your mounts, your weapons, and your armor abilities. And then right here we have the overcharge. If you remember quickly back at the beginning, we saw in the settings you could change what items get overcharged, and here it tells you what it actually does. So you need to have siphon energy, and that it'll consume that siphon energy to empower your gear, basically giving it like a, you know, one tier higher than it was. But it has a chance of breaking. Now down here, I couldn't remember where the settings are to show your FPS and your ping, but I think there might be a command for it. I'm not too sure. I might have to look that up again, or you'll have to look it up yourselves. But while I was exploring the options here in the controls, there's some very interesting stuff here with like how you play the game. I can't really tell you how or what is best for you because everyone has their own like personal way of playing the game. But these settings are like what I use for everything. Like I think they're probably the best for me. And a nice little thing here in the social tab is that you have the all your tabs that you see down in your chat box down below in the bottom left of your screen. When you press enter, it'll like start typing and it'll show like all the little different tabs you have there, and you can create your own little custom tab. I usually do this in order to have like a mute tab, like for example when I'm recording or like when I'm streaming, I don't want chat to show up, so I create a tab called mute, and basically it just filters out all the text so that nothing shows up. Anyways, I couldn't find what I was looking for, so let's continue with the exploring the UI here. So down here we have the little mini map where you can actually ping. I haven't done it in a while, so I don't know the hotkey for it, but you can ping on the map and other people in your party can also see that ping. Or you can just ping it like the mini map. There's a see-through version and there's like the normal version. I think for a see-through you just have to press Alt and whatever the mini map button is. And up here you can see on the mini map it shows you the tier of resources you can find in that zone. So let's say for example you want to do like a very specific gathering. What you can do is go up to the map here, click on any of these zones, and then you can see what kind of resources are there in that zone. Now here, because it's only tier 2 and tier 3, there's no enchanted resources, but normally on this like the left side of all these resources there's little like gem icons here, and that's the chance that the item will be enchanted, which is, you know, for later, probably another video. Another thing you'll see, especially when you're like hovering around the map on cities, is that you can look at all the different crafting stations. And this is really important when you're in the capital cities because all these crafting stations are owned by players, and they can set their own tax prices for, you know, using their buildings. So there's actually some other nifty little stuff we can do with the world map. There's a bunch of different filters you can put on it. To be fair, I probably would never use this thing. Maybe once in my entire time playing Albion, maybe when I was gathering the Black Zone at some point, but honestly, I think it's really, if you're a Black Zone player, like with the big guilds that are out there, you probably use this, but I don't see most people using this. There's something though you might end up using, and that's the faction warfare filter. I said it before, but I'll say it again. Like the faction warfare is definitely one of those things that you should try at least once because it showcases like some of the fun stuff in Albion, like the whole, you know, you don't have to find a group or anything. You just meet up with the people in your faction and just go around capturing territories and capturing zones, and you know, being like a part of a big group doing stuff together is really fun. And I've never seen this one before, but obviously it's like, you know, towards the center everything always gets better. Same thing for the capital island or the continent. It's you know, higher tier, more like better resources and more chances for enchanted stuff and all that, yada yada. Alright, that's gonna be it for me on this video. There's still a lot more stuff to go over, like there's the whole like solo dungeon, like all the stuff out in the open world, like the tracking, the solo dungeons, group dungeons. Like the world bosses. There's like you know, the mist. There's the Avalonian roads. There's like all the territories in the Black Zone. There's like an outpost for the faction warfare. There's like there's also like the expeditions I need to go over. There's still a lot of stuff that needs to be talked about if you want to know like everything there is about Albion. And I don't want to make this video too long, so I'm gonna end it here. Hopefully this video was useful for you guys. I hope it was somewhat entertaining, somewhat like a learning experience. Hopefully you learned something from this, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Living in a crowded dream, searching for the quiet that you need to